Honor guard, attend hut. We are honored here today to render appropriate respects to the men and women that have served their nations in defense of their beliefs and their countries. We are also honored by having the following individuals here to honor these. We have Dr. Peter Abbott, British Consul General, Massachusetts, and Jane Hendry of the British and Commonwealth Remembrance Project. We have from the City of Somerville, Ted Louise Jakes, City of Somerville Veterans Service Director, who will be presenting the first wreath. Brandon Wilson, Executive Director, Somerville Historic Preservation Commission. Barbara Magnum, President, Somerville Historical Society and the Somerville Museum. And last but not certainly least, Colonel Paul O'Shaughnessy of Her Majesty's 10th Regiment of the Foot. Detail, parade, rest. Veterans Day, Milk Grove Cemetery, Thursday, 11 November 2021. A proud tradition of military service, Massachusetts, marking the anniversary of the end of World War I with a Veterans Day observance at the site of the Milk Grove Cemetery's 1863 Civil War monument. It is fitting and proper to honor all veterans who have served in a war to defend and protect their freedoms and a way of life. We are here today especially to acknowledge Massachusetts and Somerville veterans, all who served in all wars at the site of the Civil War's oldest private monument. The men of Massachusetts and Somerville have a proud tradition of service to America, and especially in the American Civil War. Massachusetts regiments were the best trained, the first to mobilize and the first to deploy, and the first to fight in the Civil War. Somerville men had a distinction in serving in these units. When President Lincoln called for 75,000 volunteers to serve the Union to quell the rebellion on April 15, 1861, the Somerville Light Infantry, initially organized in 1853 as inscribed on this monument, and named on within 4 days was sworn in at Faneuil Hall, Boston, for deployment to the Union Army of the Potomac in Washington, D.C. Somerville's male population eligible for military service in 1860 was approximately 2,500 men out of a population of a little more than 8,000. 60%, 1,485 men of eligible service served in the Union in the American Civil War. Throughout the 4 long years of conflict, the men of Somerville were requested to serve on 5 occasions and volunteered over 10% more than required. They served with distinction in the 6th Massachusetts and the 39th Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry, to include the battles of Bull Run, Wilderness, Spotsylvania, Petersburg, and last but not least, Appomattox. 159,165 men from Massachusetts served in the American Civil War. Massachusetts, having not a large population, still contributed to 6th in the number of soldiers, sailors furnished, and experienced casualties significantly higher than other states. Massachusetts veterans suffered 12% of the total Civil War casualty incurred, with a 23.4% casualty rate, including 8.7% killed. The men of Somerville also paid a high price in service. Of the 250 Somerville casualties, 98 died directly to their war wounds. Some were mentioned on this monument. Somerville residents wanted to erect a monument briefing the sacrifice and service that men were making in defense of the Union. As the only burial ground in Somerville in 1861 was Milk Grove Cemetery, Enoch Robinson, a locksmith and builder of the Roundhouse in Atherton Street, donated his cemetery plot before you for the proposed monument. This monument, erected under the supervision of the Military Committee of the Somerville Light Infantry, is thought to be the first Civil War privately funded monument. The monument was constructed by Charles E. Hall of Power and Hall and dedicated over 150 years ago in July 1863. The 1863 Civil War Monument is a grand and dominant feature in the historic Milk Row Cemetery established in 1804. A CPA grant from the City of Somerville funded this monument's recent reconstruction. Honor Guard, attend, hut. Present arms. Order, arms. Detail, fallout.
Like the missing man. 700 men march out into a hostile countryside, able to raise.
Veterans Day, Milk Row Cemetery, Somerville, Thursday, 11 November 2021, Remembrance. I want to first acknowledge the fact that we have two former officials from the City of Somerville, Mayor Jean Brune and Mayor Gay. Thank you for coming today. Your presence honors us. Today, November 11th, marks the end of World War I, the Great War. Let us never forget the total cost of war. World War I was among the deadliest conflicts in human history. The total number of military and civilian casualties in World War I was around 40 million people. 9.7 million military personnel, approximately 10 million civilians, and approximately 23 million wounded military personnel. The 321,000 military casualties of the United States were only 3% of the total military casualties. In comparison, Great Britain suffered over 42% casualties out of 6 million mobilized. The 90 million casualties of World War II, as well as later conflicts, reinforces the importance of having a day each year to honor and remember the sacrifices of all veterans from all nations in protecting their freedoms and way of life. November 11th, Veterans Day, a day of remembrance for those who served with the Allies during World War I, is not unique to the United States. United Kingdom and its Commonwealth, as well as allied nations, also honor its veterans and fallen heroes on this day by so-called Remembrance Day in Great Britain, Australia, Canada, as Poppy Day in South Africa and Malta, and Armistice Day in New Zealand and other Commonwealth countries. It is fitting on this day, November 11th, at the conclusion of World War I, and the day that guns fell silent, to commemorate the sacrifice of veterans, including soldiers and civilians of all wars. The Remembrance Observance is specifically dedicated to members of the armed forces who were killed in the Great War, which was initially created by King George V of the United Kingdom on the 7th of November, 1919. A significant aftermath of World War I was the Spanish flu pandemic. 100 years later, during COVID-19 pandemic, it is fitting as we as people, like our forefathers, will get through this. Remembrance. The 11th hour of the 11th day at the 11th month reflects the end of hostilities to the war to end all wars. World War I was the signing of the armistice between the Entente Allied powers and the Central Axis powers. In the spirit of observance and casualties of all wars on Remembrance Day, we also wish to honor all unknown soldiers everywhere by the presentation of a red poppy wreath at the grave site of Milk Grove Cemetery of an unknown British soldier killed on Battle Road on 19 April 1775. Honor Guard, present arms. Present the wreath in honor of all fallen soldiers, and specifically the soldier known only to God that is buried here in this cemetery. Order, arms! I now have a presentation for the Consul General. One of our local residents, Eileen Schofield, had the initiative to make a wreath, and this is now for the British Consul so that you're in appropriate situations.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Thank
you. It's our honor, sir, to help this in any way we can. I want to thank each and every one here today, because this is what our country is all about, honoring our past, our traditions, and our men and women that serve to keep our freedoms. Thank you for coming today. That is nothing further. This concludes this ceremony. Detail, fall out.